What's happening, everybody? How's it going? So, I wanted to make a quick little video talking about trusting your body. And I felt that this was important because each one of our experiences while we're doing this process of self healing through the breath work and possibly other supplemental activities, right? I did a video on self resistance isometrics. Um, Hold on a second. I think this keeps on readjusting for whatever reason. Okay, yeah, it's probably because. Hold on. I don't know what it is. Okay, yeah, it must be because I'm leaning in or moving around and the light is trying to readjust for whatever reason. But in any case, I don't remember having this issue um, in the other video, but maybe I did. But in any case, each one of us has a unique set of experiences when we're doing these types of breath experiences or this type of breath work. And while certain breaths are meant to activate certain things within us, many times that activation can take routes that we might not expect. For example, when we're talking about the breathing exercises within the um, Master Your Breath in 30 Days course, most of those breathing practices are designed for activation. That is to say, that they're there to enhance energy, they're there to get you into, get you picked up and ready to go, right? But when I first started doing these breathing exercises, I started going through that course. I found something that seemed at first to be contrary to that. I would wake up and it would be time for me to do the breathing exercises. And by the time I was getting ready to start doing the breathing exercises, I was already awake. That is to say, that if I wanted to not even do those exercises and just go about my day, I would be able to do it wide awake, right? But what would happen is that I would go into practicing between 10 to 20 minutes of the breath, depending on um, what stage of the particular exercise I was at. And within 30 minutes, like clockwork, I'd be like, man, I gotta go back to sleep. And I have type 1 diabetes, so sometimes I was thinking, well, my blood sugar might be high or it might be low. And then I would go check my blood sugar and it was perfectly fine. And I'm like, why am I going back to sleep? I wanted to do these exercises. I wanted to do this breath work in order to get myself going, in order to fuel myself with energy, yada, 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 yada. And then I started to reflect on what my expectations were. Okay? And I was like, Enoch, you're self healing, and you also recognize that when it comes to the mechanisms surrounding your breath, okay, the lungs, the diaphragm, and the fine muscles within the torso, there's a lot of healing that's necessary in those areas. Um, Throughout my life, there's been a lot of situations that have resulted in me engineering a musculoskeletal framework that is really out of whack when it comes to its alignment. Okay. Um, the things I can note are the way I used to go to school. When I went to school, I would spend a total of about 3 hours a day on public transportation, and I would be doing it very early in the morning. And so I would go to sleep And in order to go to sleep, I would be on a on a subway train, hunched over, going to sleep on my knees. So I'd be sitting down in a, not sitting down necessarily like this, but sitting down in a chair, and I would hunch over, and I would be asleep on my knees. Okay, I would sleep on my knees, hunched over. Doing that for 2 years straight in the realm of 2 hours a day, that has the capacity to cause some problems. On top of that, being a normative American teenage boy with the internet available, there's a whole bunch of pornography available. Spending, I don't know how much time in front of a computer, messing around with yourself while watching pornography, that also throws your body out of whack. I was shot when I was 17 in the back. Luckily, the bullet flew out. I don't have a bullet in me. However, I spent 21 days in the hospital, and there was a significant amount of muscle atrophy on my right side because I got shot in the spine. I got shot 2 centimeters away from my spine, and the bullet flew out around here, you know. You can barely see the bullet wound now. In fact, I'm not even sure you can discernibly see it anymore. Um, and on top of that, I would say the excessive amount of drinking that I used to do when I was in college. I haven't had excessive drinking habits since I was 21. I'm 35 years old. That being said, when I used to drink hard, okay? Um and in order to recover from that, I would spend egregious amounts of time throwing up in order to get the alcohol out of my system so that I didn't have a massive hangover, or so that I didn't suffer a hangover for too long. The fact of the matter is that all of those activities threw a great deal of my musculoskeletal system out of whack, and it's no greater out of whackness is going on anywhere in my body other than my torso region, from here to here. Okay, completely out of whack. And so when it came to practicing these breath exercises, a lot of the knots and the tension and the stored up trauma in that area, in the torso region, required healing. It still does require healing. When you want to heal, one of the biggest things that you do is that you rest, right? Because the resting state of body is highly conducive to engendering physiological, mental, social, maybe not social, but emotional and spiritual healing, right? Um, and so, if we're talking about utilizing an activation breath, but that activation breath is also helping to heal mechanisms, it might be that you wind up needing to sleep after that. Okay? Now, I'm lucky because I work at home, and due to working at home, I work on my own schedule. So if I need to take an extra 2 hours worth of sleep, I can do it. But at first, it did perturb me. It did get on my damn nerves. And I was a little bit annoyed. But what I had to reflect on is the fact that in order to heal, I have to allow my body to do what it takes to heal. If it means that I take an extra 2 hours worth of sleep, it's time for me to take an extra 2 hours of sleep, especially since after those 2 hours, I felt like $1,000,000. Okay. Um, One of the things I can talk about right now is the fact that um, low or high blood sugars. I'm a type 1 diabetic. Or I don't want to identify myself as a type 1 diabetic. I'll say that my body is experiencing type 1 diabetes. Um, High and low blood sugars have an invariable effect on my ability to operate throughout the day, right? However, since doing the breathing, I have found that those occurrences have went from being daily occurrences to maybe 3 to 4 times a week, which is drastically different than what I used to experience. Sometimes I'm experiencing 3 low blood sugars in a day, 2 high blood sugars in one day. Now I might experience two, 2 or 3 high blood sugars and 1 low blood sugar, or 1 to 3 low blood sugars and 1 high blood sugar throughout the week. And then after that, I'm not experiencing that. Um, More importantly is that when I would wake up after doing those breaths, generally speaking, I was not inclined to go to my phone or anything like that. I'd rather just be inclined to get my day started. And one thing I noticed is that once I got out the shower, I would always um, there's always like this sense of contentment from just washing my body. And I don't really know how to explain that, but it's something I noticed. I was like, over the past few days, getting out of the shower, finishing that shower just felt good. And I'm like, I don't really recall that ever really happening. It's not like I would ever feel bad getting out of the shower, but it was just like just feeling contented after getting that good scrub in with that Dr. Bronner's all natural soap and everything like that. It's like, I just feel good after getting out of the shower. Um, the fact of the matter is that Brian emphasizes over and over again that we should trust our body and that we shouldn't go into this practice with a pre planned set of expectations. That rather, we should let this practice unfurl what is necessary for us and allow it to direct our body towards activating the self healing mechanisms that we need to solve the issues that we are dealing with. Okay? So if you're doing an activation breath and you find yourself feeling tired or feeling like you want to go to sleep, it's understandable that that might confuse you considering the fact that this is an activation breath. But then when you recognize that all of these breaths are designed to put you into an optimal state and that to do so that there may be some healing involved, allow your body to heal in the best way that it's going to heal. And sometimes that may be, at least initially, contraindicative to what the purpose of that breath actually is. But just because it's contraindicative to what that breath practice normally is doesn't mean it's contraindicative to what you need to heal. It means that on that path to creating a state where you're energized, first and foremost, there are some mechanisms that need to be healed so that when that energization, um, so that as you continue to do these breaths, eventually that energization, that pep in your step that these breaths can put into you, along with an assortment of other benefits, it can actually start to set in. But if your framework isn't necessarily built at the moment for that optimal energization, then it's going to go and heal those mechanisms. And sometimes it might institute the necessity for you to have to go to sleep. Okay? Now, that's just one instance. I'm not saying that this is the only way these things manifest. I'm talking specifically about my situation, right? But this is just to use my situation as an example to let you know, allow your body to heal the way it needs to heal so that you can get to the place where you are performing at your best capacity, right? So, aside from that, I believe that that's going to be it for this video. Um, Thanks to everybody who engaged in the self-resistance isometric video. I really appreciate that uh, everybody that engaged in that material was able to benefit from it, or they were able to appreciate it. And until next time, peace.